guys, it's Jerningam here. I'm going to be playing another Nigel Farage video. I really like the things that Nigel Farage is doing. Hopefully he'll be able to get in the European elections tomorrow. Who knows? This Nigel Farage is 15 to 22%, and that's UKIP is in as well. That's 14%. He's got two clubs. Hopefully Nigel Farage tomorrow will win. So what's underneath that? UKIP, Labour, Brexit Party is. See what Labour are 24%, but it's plus 22, and we had the Conservatives one as well. So we'll look here.
Well, leading pollster and politics professor Sir John Curtis says the newly formed Brexit Party will challenge the Conservatives at the forthcoming EU elections in May if the UK takes part. The Brexit Party and UKIP could grab a pivotal chunk of the vote on 10.3% and 7.5% respectively. That will see the Conservatives on 23%. And this is a long way behind the Labour Party, who lead with 37.8% of the electorate.
So the Labour Party were 37%, but they've gone down now. So UKIP, not UKIP, Brexit Party are higher now. This is an old video what I'm showing.
Well, I think that's a $64,000 question. I mean, you're quite right. European Parliament elections rarely get to turn out much above 33%.
I'm showing you guys a few old videos, but you've probably not seen, but most of you probably have.
So now inviting them to vote for a bunch of MEPs who may never actually even get on an aeroplane to Strasbourg doesn't sound like
so
the
there's
most
Nigel Farage, the Brexit
But
Party's
of
higher.
course, the Brexit debate has certainly captured the interest and the concern and the enthusiasm of people on both sides of the argument. 2 in 5 of us say we're very strongly a Remainer or very strongly a Leaver, and that it may well therefore be that these elections can be seen as something of a surrogate for those on the Leave side to indicate their dissatisfaction with the way in which Brexit is being handled, indeed the fact that we have still not managed to leave the European Union, and on the other side perhaps those who would like to see another referendum and would like to see Brexit reversed also using this as an occasion to register their point of view. So it's very early days, very difficult to tell, but certainly given how dominating Brexit's been in our political debate, maybe this will help to bring voters to the polls, even though the parties themselves may not put a great deal of effort into campaigning.
Indeed. In the meantime then, as we heard, you said the UKIP Brexit Party share could be sizable, but if it's split between the two, it'll do far less damage to the two main parties, won't it?
Yeah, this is a $64,000 question. I mean, certainly one of the reasons why it looks as though the Conservatives would be at least potentially heading for a quite...
So we're going back in time now, guys.
Reversal of, you know...
I'm going to pause the video here for a minute. So basically, Labour were 37% a few weeks ago, and then 8%, and then it was Conservatives 23%, UKIP were 10%, then it goes to Lib Democrats, where Democrats were 8.1%, then UKIP was 7.5%, but now this is an old video that I'm showing you guys on what I'm filming. So now the Brexit Party will be 37%, if that makes any sense. And the Labour Party will be a lot lower than it is now. This is an old video, so don't get yourself confused, guys, when you watch this video. The Labour Party are ahead of the Conservatives and the Labour. The head of the Conservatives and the Labour is the Brexit Party. The Brexit Party's got the most votes, but on this video, this old video, the Brexit Party are just starting up and getting bigger and bigger. So it looks like the Labour are winning, and then the Conservatives are behind Labour. You'd have thought it'd be Conservatives that are winning and not Labour. But now this is the Brexit Party have gone up to 37% on the previous videos, and the UKIP's gone slightly up. So the Brexit Party and UKIP are similar. The Democrats are just Remainers like Labour. So I just clear that anyway.
Certainly getting support, maybe not much as more than a quarter, maybe even less of the vote, is indeed that they seem to be losing votes to both UKIP and to the Brexit Party. But at the moment, at least, support, insofar as the polls are registering this, and they're not all frankly doing so, it looks as though the support for Brexit and UKIP is divided fairly evenly between them. But one has to say, the polls, not all of them are asking people about the Brexit Party. It's very early days. And certainly what Nigel Farage will be hoping he can do is to become very clearly the leading Eurosceptic party in the early weeks of the 6-week campaign, so that he can begin to try to hoover up.
So we're sort of going back in time here with this video, guys.
If indeed, however, the vote remains divided, then in the end, the ability of either of them to pick up very much in the way of MEPs for what they're going to be worth will certainly be limited.
So who do you think will suffer more then, Professor? The Tories losing votes to the right, or Labour to the pro-Remain parties and their Northern Leave vote as well?
At the moment, it looks as though it's the Conservative Party that's at the greater risk. If you compare the level of support being registered for the Conservatives in a general election at the moment, which is still only around 32%, and then compare a position in those polls about European Parliament elections, we find the Conservatives 10 points adrift, mostly because it's going to UKIP and Brexit. The Labour Party, in contrast, yes, they are adrift of where they are currently in the general election polls, which is about 34%, but the drift is much less. They're only about 3 points below that, and it's so far, at least, the evidence that the Change UK Party, the new pro-Remain party formed by those MPs who defected from the Conservative and Labour Party a few weeks ago, together with the Liberal Democrats, the other obvious primary pro-Remain entity, it's not obvious that they're necessarily going to do that well in these elections. On that side of the argument, at least, it's still far from clear that Remain voters are going to defect from the Labour Party and switch to one of the smaller parties. But again, one has to remember, it's early days, and Change UK have had very little opportunities yet to signal to voters as to where they stand and to try to pick up their votes.
So that's an old video, what I've just shown there. You can learn on the history of old videos. This video is about 4 days ago.
Voters across Europe will go to the polls on Thursday to elect a new European Union Parliament. The United Kingdom was supposed to have made its Brexit from the EU 2 months ago, but has not, because the country's Conservative government has failed to reach a deal that satisfies either the British Parliament or the EU. So the UK will hold elections as usual, but there's a twist. Polls suggest that the candidates most likely to be seated in the European Union Parliament are those who are most determined that Britain must leave the EU. NewsHour Weekend Special Correspondent Malcolm Bradley reports.
Zorba's Dance, a Greek classic, rings out at a traditional fair in what has long been the Conservative Party's heartland in southern England. It's an ironic selection for Brexiteers, because 2 months after Britain was due to leave the EU, the nation is still dancing to Europe's tune.
I did vote to come out, and I think it's been going on far too long, and it's a terrible mess at the moment.
A shambles. It's a bit embarrassing, really. Representation of Britain and our politics.
They should have taken Britain at its word when we voted to leave.
We have been betrayed. That is why I set up the Brexit Party. It's why we're going to fight the European elections on May the 23rd, and that is just the beginning of what is needed in this country.
Please welcome to the stage, Nigel Farage.
Nigel Farage formerly led the UK Independence Party, the driving force behind the 2016 Brexit referendum. He's trying to convince voters in Featherstone, a gritty town 200 miles north of London, to return him to the EU Parliament, an institution he holds in contempt.
Generally, the Brits are very placid, very slow to anger, but right at the minute, they're angry because they're democracy. And think about this. We've had a continuous parliament for 800 years. It's called the mother of parliaments. We've spread this model of democracy to the rest of the world, and yet it's here that that's being betrayed.
Featherstone used to be rock-solid Labour Party territory. Like many former Labour strongholds across Britain, this region voted overwhelmingly in favour of Brexit.
And let's make a big noise that they hear down in Westminster. What do we want? Brexit! When do we want it?
Now! Allowing them to dictate the terms of our trade deals is not winning.
Anne Widdecombe, a former prisons minister and Conservative Party veteran, is another Brexit Party candidate. She believes victory for the new party will help to ensure that Britain leaves the EU.
I think it's very important that when people look at the British delegation in the European Parliament, they see a phalanx of people determined to leave. That is very important because I think there's a very misinformed view in Brussels and Strasbourg, but it's a very misinformed view that somehow we're not very serious about it, that Britain doesn't really want to leave. Well, that may be true of some of our leading politicians, but it's not true of the British people.
Our message is that no longer are we prepared to see our great nation humiliated in front of the rest of the world. It's time we stood up, stood tall, proud of who we are, and able to start forging our own fresh relationships around the world. And we're going to fight on through May the 23rd and on to make this a better, more democratic nation. Thank you.
They have totally betrayed us. 17.4 million people are betrayed by the government. Up north, we don't seem to matter.
I don't know what my father would think if he was still here, because he was a avid Labour supporter all his life. But it doesn't seem like politics anymore. It seems like corruptics.
These rallies have given Farage's party a commanding lead. Latest polls predict they'll get around 35%, capturing support from traditional Labour and Conservative voters. Farage's surge has panicked the two main parties. But is this a temporary or permanent shift? Quentin Letts writes about Parliament for the Times of London.
I think it's probably only a protest vote at the moment. I'm very nervous about going further because as soon as Mrs May is gone, if she ever goes, then I think it all changes, and a different Conservative leader would be a very different proposition for the Brexit Party to take on.
Many opponents despise Farage for this anti-immigrant poster from 2016, depicting droves of migrants heading towards Western Europe. Some critics say it resembles 1930s Nazi propaganda.
Nigel Farage is the ultimate tactical politician in the sense that through his political career he's been in favour of a whole set of different things, from fairly right-wing economic policies like selling off bits of our treasured National Health Service, but he's adapted.
Professor Anand Menon of King's College London says Farage is managing to shrug off race issues during this campaign.
One of the things that his former party did very well was realise there was a whole pool of left-leaning voters, Labour voters, who could be appealed to by talking about more state spending, and hey presto, that's what they did. So he's very tactical, he's very flexible. He has been defined in his career by this one issue of our membership of the European Union, and at the moment, of course, that issue is serving him well.
Normally in Britain, elections for the European Parliament aren't significant at all, largely because of voter apathy. At the last round, 5 years ago, the turnout was less than 37%. But this time, passions are running high because of the failure of Prime Minister Theresa May's Conservative government to deliver Brexit. And if, as the polls predict, the Conservatives are humiliated at the ballot box, then Theresa May could finally lose her grip on power. So-called Remainers have also lost faith in the main opposition Labour Party because it's continually flip-flopped on Brexit. In fact, some Labour MPs have left and joined a new party, Change UK.
Our politics is broken. Britain's two-party system needs to be shaken up. This messy Brexit process is the clearest example of this.
Change UK wants Britain to
TV's
stay
just
in
turned
the
itself
EU.
off again.
It's a mix of defective.
Noise when that happens. It just wants to turn itself off.
A member of Parliament.
We are not seeking to set the wealthy in this country against people who are not so wealthy. We are not trying to seek to set the people in this region against people in London or in any other region. We are not seeking to set different ethnicities, nationalities and religions against each other, because we know ultimately you will not do anything but fail.
We aren't fighting for ourselves, and certainly my generation. We're fighting for the futures of our children and for our grandchildren.
Former Cabinet Minister Anna Soubry is a Conservative defector to Change UK and one of the most vocal opponents of Brexit. She accuses the Conservatives of turning further to the right and Labour of becoming socialist extremists.
The majority of people in our country, frankly, find that nobody genuinely and absolutely represents them. And this is about trying to do things differently. It's also giving people who occupy that sensible, moderate, centrist, that progressive ground a place to come and join us and to change British politics.
But Change UK is floundering in the polls. Nigel Farage says this is indicative of dissatisfaction with mainstream politicians.
I think that we're seeing a sea change in politics across the entire Western world.
And Change UK and the Brexit Party are similar. So is UKIP.
Brexit, with Trump in America, with the wholesale change in Italy. And I think we're now at a point where the two-party structure in Britain is under threat in a way it's not been since the end of the First World War.
Back in southern England at the May Fair, local mayor Chris Funnell is bracing himself for the impact that this wrecking ball of an election will have on his Conservative Party.
I think we've proven over time that we do adapt. This is one that's going to go down in history, where we're going to have to prove that we can adapt to one of the biggest changes that we've ever seen.
Britons may express their frustration this coming Thursday, but the slow train out of the European Union will be no closer to reaching its destination.
I've been fucking hoes and popping pillies, man, I feel just like a rock star. All my brothers.
Somebody trying to